Okay, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about level design for Ghost Recon. Some things you should do, should not do. I'm going to show you some examples on how to model things, quick ways to kind of get started into modeling levels and things for levels. I'll go over a couple basic ones in this one, but in future videos, I'll be doing more advanced ones on like how to build a certain kind of a house or a bunch of different props or whatever the case may be, whatever I feel like doing for that given day. But nonetheless, let's talk about sizing in for Ghost Recon here. It is pretty important that you get the right sizes. So ceiling heights, I would never go below 2 meters. So I got my cube here, the end panels pulled out, and never below 2 meters. I wouldn't do it. It feels pretty cramped and short when you're right there. So keep that in mind. And it's probably not a good idea to do it. Preferably, you want them at 3 meters or higher. And that's according to the level builder PDF file. That's what it recommends. Somewhere around there or higher, depending on what you're building. You know, if you're making a huge church or something that has big vaulted ceilings, yeah, go ahead and do that if you have to. But so 3 meters, keep that in mind. The hallway width, they recommend using a minimum of 1.6 meters for hallway width. Okay, 1.6 meters to me is not wide enough. I'm sure it works, but I would say just to err on the side of caution, use 2. The idea being is that 2 characters at 1.6 meters should be able to pass each other. I would say 2 just to be a little bit on the safe side. Doorways, this is going to be fun. Okay, so let's shrink this back down. Let's talk about wall width. I would never go below 0.2 meters for a wall width, maybe 0.15 at the most. But 0.15 to 0.2, that's kind of the sweet spots in my opinion for walls. Doors, you will probably make them around 0.1 in width. So your door itself will be about this size, and then if you do 0.2, oops, 0.2, 0.2 for the wall, 0.1 for the door. So this would be like your actual door. This would be your door frame, okay, and then the wall itself. So keep that in mind. The actual door height is going to be 2.4 meters. So you get a reference here. And it will be 1.2 meters wide. So the doorways can be 1.2 meters wide. The characters can traverse in and out of it when it's like that. So keep that in mind. Your door itself would probably be around, specialty doors. You can use what you want, but like this would be like the door geometry for your standard single door. Stairways, this is a fun one. We're going to actually create a plane. And I'm going to kind of introduce you here to this little tidbit. I'm going to go straight into edit mode with this plane. You know about the snapping up here. If you hold control, it allows you to snap. Just keep that in mind. We're just going to turn it on real quick and snap both of these in. Now if I press G, Z, and I don't have to hold control, but I can just hold shift, you'll see that it snaps up. That's 0.1 meters, and if I snap up again, it's 0.2 meters. Okay, so stairways or stairs, they need to have a rise of 0.2 meters and then a run of 0.3 meters. So press E and then Y, and then do the same out this way. You'll end up with 0.3 meters being your run. If you're making a basic staircase and not something fancy like a spiral staircase or anything like that, when you create it off a plane this way, it's really simple to add a modifier and do an array. We're going to use relative offset. We're just going to press 0. We're going to change the the Y offset to 1 and the Z offset to 1. And now you can see we actually have a staircase started. And we can go ahead and just put in the amount of steps we need to get to the next floor, the next level. Okay. There's ways to finish this, different ways to finish this, where you can make there'd be like a solid beam here, you know, like if it's a catwalk or something, or if you want a solid floor coming all the way down. It's not too complicated to do, but you know, just think of it like this. Ooh, if it's gonna let me actually do it. Why can I not move it down? Oh, because I got snapping on. That's why. Okay, you can leave snapping on. I usually leave it off and just use Control and Shift. But you can kind of see how that run's getting started right there. And if I was to do that again, you'll notice that the amount here is kind of changed. So on the Y, we do 0.5. We're going to make it the same size. We can actually bump this one up. Oops, there we go. So that'll actually give you some pretty clean geometry if you do that. And you can create like that catwalk kind of staircase, or you could just simply bring it down. Oops, I grabbed the wrong vertex. Didn't know that was possible. All right. We're going to delete that real quick. There we go. Managed to make that happen. You can see every time that I change this, the geometry kind of does what it wants. The reason why is it's based off the size of the staircase itself. That's relative offset. If you use constant offset, you can actually do your up of 0.2 and then your run of 0.3, and that'll never change now. So even if I was to you see, like extrude like that, nothing's gonna happen. Just depends on what you want to use. You can certainly bring this down like so, and you'll have that kind of a deal. But there's a quicker way. I'm going to show you that real quick. The quicker way, well, there's a couple quick ways. We're going to make a whole thing about stairs here, but let's go ahead and do it real quick. We need to apply the modifier. So we're going to actually click merge and then apply it. And the easiest, quickest way to do this, go into a side view. We're going to bring that all the way down to 0. Okay. Once you do that, turn off, whenever you're modeling things, turn off backface colon, just to make sure you got things right. But I can select this whole border here. Oops, I gotta merge it, I guess. Yeah, it didn't merge. I can select this whole border by pressing Alt, pressing F, and it fills it. It's creating a lot of little triangles in here, but you know, just for simplicity's sake, it's quick and easy to do it that way. Also, let's talk about building things modularly real quick. Stairs are fun, but we'll get back to that in a second. Okay. Building things modularly, like when I started with that mesh, that plane here. Let's move one side in. Let's move the other side in. I'm going to move it up 3 meters now. So 1, 2, 3. So this could be like a wall. right? No big deal. It doesn't need a lot of detail. GR doesn't require a lot for buildings. If I was to duplicate this out though, oops, let's not duplicate it out that way. Let's actually, uh, let's do things the right way if we're doing things modularly. We got to go to object mode and then duplicate it and hold control as you move it so that the little pivot point is on the grid as you move along. Okay. This is a big discussion on how to make things modular and uh, all that fun kind of stuff. But snapping it to the grid is kind of the basis there. You know, you can make a wall, and then the next thing you know, you can make something that's a window. No biggie. Just simply use loop cuts, bevel things, and then eventually you'll cut it in and set it. So that might be your window. Okay, or you could do a doorway or whatever the case may be. And this is going to be a repetitive thing. Oop, I keep doing that. You gotta duplicate it when it's in object mode. So keep that in mind. G0. Oh, yeah. Press 0 over here. Okay. By distance. Okay. So more or less what's going to end up happening is as you go through, and let me put some shadows on. As you go through and you create this kind of mesh, you know, you'll have your doorways, your windows, your walls. So if you're doing like interior stuff, it's really good. But you can also make an exterior match these sets here. So you can actually build GR levels that way. It's not impossible to do. It's a little bit harder in some ways. But always like using geometry, being able to make it repeat itself. So if you UV map this and texture it, and it has a tiling texture on it that lines up perfectly with the edges, you can then tile this with that one and that one and that one, and so on and so forth. You can make some pretty convincing modular kits real quick. You know, a lot of games do that, and so you can certainly do it in GR. The only difference is you don't want to have any overlaps. So for example, if I was to rotate this 90 degrees, whoops, let me copy real quick. Rotate Z90. And I move it while holding, well, Shift Z so it's flat, and I move it. So you can see here that these have no gap between them. So I can use these pretty much anywhere. And if I was going to make like a floor polygon, fortunately for GR, it's just a grid square usually. You can see how that works out. So you would start repetitiously building whatever it is you need to build. But you want to do this. Normally you want to do this after you got a UV map. When you start laying it all out, you want to build the kit first, and then you want to do all this. So did I even duplicate it? It didn't look like it. So many buttons sometimes. So this is an option. If you're going to do an all interior level, this is a great way to go about it. You can make pieces that match up for an exterior. It's just it's going to be a little tricky to implement that part though. So you kind of get the idea. All right. There's other ways to build for GR, of course. That's just one. You know, a lot of people just start with like a cube. If you're doing interior, you start with a cube. Then you take this cube. What you do with it is you're going to invert the normals. So you're going to press Alt in, and then you're going to flip normals. And so now you can actually start working with this. Unfortunately, you can't select through it. So if you press Alt Z, you turn on the transparency mode. You can now. There's a little trick here, right up at the top, where it says X-ray under this little tab. X-ray. You can change the opacity of it. I just turn it all the way up. I think it's easier. And so now we can actually move this. And we can do something similar to what we were just doing, where we snap everything to the grid. Unfortunately, I've already moved the cube, so nothing's on the grid. That will be a problem. So let's create another one real quick. And I'm just going to readjust this, making it 3 meters tall. Okay. Selecting it all, Alt and flip. There we go. So now we can actually start cutting out interiors and things like that. As I'm moving, I'm going to hold Control and snap. If you don't, it's going to be a problem. Otherwise, you could just click the little snap thing and just always have it on, which can be useful, especially when you're doing this hard kind of lay-in of a building. Now, there's so many different ways to cut doorways and lay out floor plans for buildings. It can get pretty intense, but I still approach it similar to what I was just doing. I'll start cutting shapes in where I need them, how I need them. But let's say a doorway real quick. Maybe I want a doorway right here, so I'll press Control B. I'll bevel. Actually, if you click bevel here, check it. You can expand the little menu in the bottom left there. Change it to width and bevel 1.2 meters. Okay, and you'll have the absolute width that you need. I can Control R, add an edge loop. Go back. There we go. I don't need the whole edge loop. I just need this one edge. So I'm going to press SZ0, flatten it out, press N, bring this panel back out. And I need it at 2.4 meters high because that's the size of a doorway. So that's what I would end up using. Now, if this was like a church, I would have the, of course I would have the doorway in the middle, but just for example here, I can extrude this. Holding shift while snap is on, you can easily get the 0.2 meter difference there. So you can see I just created a doorway super fast. I actually start my next room off of this one. So I'll just press E, Y, and I'll try to line this up. If I can't get it right, if it ain't perfect, I'll actually go into the on the side panel there, the end panel, and I'll put in the actual value. I think it's a little bit more useful. Now you could do this where you lay it all back out manually like I am right now. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to show you another little trick here in a second though. So you can see that this is not okay. There we go. Like rematching this is going to be a little bit challenging, but not impossible. We're going to press easy. We're going to get the height the same. Press S, Y, 0. And you can see how it did like so. It didn't want to do the right thing apparently. So this is a bunch of vertices now because I scaled them. They're all mixed up. Select that, just merge it by distance. So M, merge by distance. This value here on y-axis is 5 meters. So we're going to put that at 5 meters. You can kind of see how fast you can kind of fix this kind of stuff up. So I might just press E, X, and then just start extruding out. This is going up there to that corner instead of the way this one is. You know, you could in theory cut the same design here, uh, but ultimately you really don't need to, because at the very end you should be uh, taking like this loop that we're not using, just sliding it all the way up, and those should be going to their respective corners. And you're going to try, basically, you don't want to create too many like long triangles that run forever, but you know, it doesn't hurt to clean things up and make them triangles. So that's pretty good over there. We could do something similar over here. You know, there's no point in kind of matching those. I'm gonna put that one up there and then put that one over there. I think we just matched them. Pretty close. Looks like we have. With the exception of this middle piece right here. No, this way. I don't like having that cramped up in that corner, so we're gonna actually try this one. You don't want to make pinching kind of triangles. Sometimes a lighting editor will actually get crazy with that kind of stuff. So you can see how you can start doing this. It's not crazy, but it's not the most simple thing either. So select two edges, press F, two edges, press F, and like so. There we go. Of course, we'd finish this building with exterior doors and all that good stuff. This whole edge here, we could actually, bam, done. So you got the interior starting to be cut out. Not a big deal. Let's say you want to add some extensions to it. You notice how when I went to cut that, it didn't cut across the floor? That's okay. Because it's triangulated, it doesn't create a loop. Go into a side, if I can talk here today, a side orthographic view. Press K. There's a lot of options down here at the bottom for your knife tool. So you can press K, and then Z will cut through, and also press C for angle restraint. You can do that number, and then just press enter, and it'll cut all the way through like so. You can take that, you can bevel it. Okay. Holding control doesn't really do nothing. The snap system doesn't really snap the bevel at all. So when you bevel this, pay close attention that you don't do this by accident. Make sure it's width, and you change it to 0.2 meters. Okay. Because you could mess that up. Now, personally, I kind of like this little area here. But it doesn't match the top, which is okay. We'll figure this out. I'm going to delete these three faces. I'm going to take this one, press E and Z, and run it up. Okay. This whole face, I'm going to press S, Y, 0. It probably doesn't line up where it needs to on the grid at this point, but I'm not too worried about it. It's going to be a little bit more custom. It looks like, though, it's really close. Yeah, it's so close. It's like ridiculously close. So an easy way to go about doing this is just zoom in really far on these kind of things. Just press G, Z, and then just line it up really close. That's about the best you can do in Blender. I used to have a plug-in in another program that would line them up perfectly, which was real cool. But I don't have that for Blender, so Blender does do it. I don't know how to do it. I'm always learning new things, so like, take that with a grain of salt there. I don't know everything about Blender, but I know that it is very much a lot of stuff to learn. That was kind of geeked up. There was a lot of problems there. So fortunately, we had enough information or enough edges to come through and recreate it. That's good. There's just kind of some weird topology going on. It's probably on this side too. See, there's like a hidden edge up here. That's so weird. That edge is up there. All right. So you'll run into a lot of little problems like that. It gets kind of annoying, but you'll get the idea. Anyways, let's see. What are we gonna do? Let's go with a new object. We're gonna press Shift A. We're gonna create a plane. Okay, we're gonna move this over here. We're gonna leave it on the grid for now. But we're gonna snap. Let's see if this works. We're gonna snap to vertex. We're gonna turn it on. And we're gonna go into edit mode with this plane. Let's see what we can do. This is like a retopo technique. But I was pretty sure this would work, and sure enough it is. I have never really done this before, so it's just giving you ideas on how you can utilize Blender. This is not snapping to increments no more, but it will snap to vertices, so you can do that number. So right here, E, and I can snap to that vertex, E, snap to that vertex. Select these two, E, snap to that vertex. This needs to go down to 0. Okay, so create a shell over this real quick. Same thing right here. This is a separate object now. We should be able to select the whole thing, press Alt E. No, not all that. I don't need to select all that. Just the shell. Go to edit, select the whole thing, press Alt E, extrude faces along normals. They're not connected in some areas. So what we need to do is just, before we do that, press M, merge by distance. Extrude faces along normals. Ooh, it really didn't like that, huh? Only 2. Let's do 0.01 and see what happens. Well, it got all of them now. So extrude faces along normal. It does, you want to check offset even. I've always found it to work better, but let's do 0.2 meters. And you see how basically you're doing the same thing now, but you're doing the outside. And so you could actually do the interior. You can do the outside, then the interior, and you'd have a building made. If you're going to make a playable inside building. Just a basic rough idea of it. The outside, of course, requires a little bit different of a technique to generate. Oh, you know what? The check this out. I'm gonna press Shift H. Oops, Alt H. Apparently, I had the inside selected. No. So we're gonna press Shift H, hide everything else, go to edit mode. This here has an interior shell. I think that's what it's looking like. Turn that grid off real quick. Back face colon on. Yes. So it has an interior shell. Select these two. Press number pad plus sign or shift number pad plus sign. You should end up doing the select more feature there. I'm going to delete vertices, and so now we have just the shell. Okay, so I should be able to go select this whole thing now and do the same process here where you would want to add a door or a window or whatever the case is, and you would work through it basically. Oh, you know what it's doing? I think I had both of them selected, so in edit mode. Yeah. You can edit them both at the same time if you really want. It can be a little challenging. I was wondering what was going on there. So, yeah. Good in theory. Just do it like this. Add a cut there. Add a cut. You know, oh, turn snap off real quick. Or turn it to increment at least. So I want to put this pretty much in the same area. So I can bevel these two at the same time with 1.2 meters. A loop. Now I won't be able to get the loop inside because I already optimized it. Usually you want to try to leave things quad or with the loops everywhere. So we're just going to do it kind of similar on each side. So we're going to do it 2.4 on the inside. This wall here. Oh, we actually. No, that's the outside. Let's see. Yeah, looks like we can. I think it already went to the right height too. It's 2.4. Yeah, it is. So watch this. You select both of those polygons, delete both the faces, and now you have an entrance and an exit. You just have to go through real quick, select this edge, press. You can't press F, sorry. They're not combined together. So you need to determine whether you want the doorway to be on the interior or on the exterior. GR, I don't think it really matters. I think you could do either or, but I think interior works a little bit better perhaps. So that's why it's important to measure things so that's 0.2 meters. Yeah, so there you go. That's kind of like your first house, basic idea of creating a house. Staircase, you know, working with modular systems. You know, when it really comes down to, oh, you know what, let's just do terrain real quick because it's real easy. We're going to create a plane. We're going to go in the top orthographic view. We're going to move it somewhere. Go into edit mode. Now we're just going to play with this on small scale, but normally you would make it to scale. So each grid square is a meter. All right. Should be anyways. Yeah. So that's 2 meter by 2 meter square there. Go into edit mode, select an edge. And what you can do is hold control and then right click. And it does a quick extrusion. Okay. And so this was, you know, just a plane. So what I can do is I can cut out like a floor plan for the terrain anyways. Like if this was a road, maybe it's a little small dirt road, you know, I can just quickly cut it out. If I need, you know, a lot of level design ideas is that you have little arenas. So sometimes maybe not do that. Maybe you want to extrude off your road first a little bit. But you know, a lot of times you want to create like your little arena areas. So you might do something like that. You know, select some edges, extrude them out. You know, go to town on this. Don't be afraid of this part. Terrain's awesome. It's easy. It's easy, it's fun. I think it's cool. You can use triangles, and, you know, keep things. If you want to keep your loops, but you don't necessarily have to. You can bevel vertices and do some crazy stuff like that. Don't destroy your road though, preferably. Easy fix if you do. Just slide things around a little bit. So, yeah, you can bevel this one over here too. A lot. Maybe bevel it again. Okay. So you press Control B and then V, and it lets you do that. All right. Merge everything by distance. Let's finish this little section up. All right. Maybe you want to do a loop. Oh, it doesn't let you. Collapse that down. It should. Oh, we still got one. This one over here. There's fun ways to get through this kind of stuff. You can just kind of do that. Yeah, so work in quads if possible. If you run into that issue, don't fret. It just means you're too you're trying to go too fast. Just watch out for it. Sometimes I like how it kind of randomly. Oh, you can rotate too. Keep that in mind. Sometimes I kind of like the randomness of it. Select everything. Go to Vertex or Vertices. Right click and then do a smooth vertices. Sometimes that's fun. It'll kind of smooth things up a little bit. You can even do that on just certain ones. So yeah, you can do something like that, perhaps. So this might be a play arena. This might be a play kind of area. Maybe there's a little pathway that cuts through. You need something to block this area. Just add a loop cut. Maybe it's like a hill or something. I don't know. Fix this kind of stuff up. Okay. So that's your terrain for the most part. All you would do now is just, I would personally use proportional editing on smooth, sometimes random. But I'll grab a vertex, press G and then Z, and then I'll just, you know, make it as big as I need to make it. And just, you know, if I want to add a little bit of effects to certain areas, maybe I want them to be a little, got a little hill here or there, a little depression. So if this was like a big level, you know, I could add a little cliff kind of area. Press Control F and try grid fill. If you don't have equal amounts, it's not an even number of edges, it won't work. So you can always add a loop cut if you have to, or cut an edge anyways. Control F and then grid fill. You'll see it does that number. It doesn't always get things right, but I wanted this to go up, not down. So, oh, I got proportional editing on. Turn that off because I want it to look like a little hill. It's kind of rough, so I'm going to bevel that vertex there. Yeah, see, that looks a little bit better. Yeah, those kind of things. Those are just ways you can modify terrain and all that. All right, so here we go. The trick is, I've been talking about just how to kind of model things real quick. Let's talk about some do's and do nots. So first, when you're doing any kind of overhang, so let's say this is a cliff edge and this is another cliff side. This is a little pathway that you're going to end up running through, right? If your mesh does this number, where it just kind of overhangs like that, what ends up happening, that's a do not. Your character's head is going to end up in this area where he can see through the map, and it's going to kind of kill everything. Otherwise, if you lean too far back, you're not going to have a collision wall, and you're going to get sticky edges. I demonstrated that in a previous video. So tilt it up more, or whenever you have these kind of things going on, you can certainly just take this section here and then bump it up about 2 meters high, or more as needed, and then turn this into an invisible collider when you get into GR. So you can make those in Blender and transfer them over so you have them all ready to go. But you could also make them in 3D Studio Max if you wanted to do that. This also works on this. If this was to let me grab an edge here. If this was to overhang like this, you notice how the floor hasn't changed at all. So what you really want to do is you want to grab this face here. It's kind of backwards right now, but I'm gonna rip it by pressing Y and moving it. Actually, I'm not gonna move it. I'm gonna add a loop cut, and I'm gonna grab this area and bring it out. The point is, you just want to make sure that it's not accessible to the player in those areas. So right, that's hanging over. And it hangs over pretty far. It hangs over like down to here. So you'd want to do a real tight collision wall. That's why I would highly suggest to avoid doing those kind of overhangs unless absolutely necessary. So like one of the times you might have to actually make this collision wall would be for like bridges and things you can go under. All right. Here's another fun little fact. If you have, let's say, let's create another plane real quick. You have a floor polygon, right? And this, let's say this is under a bridge. And I'll just make the idea of a bridge. This is how fast you can kind of cut the ideas out too. So it's good. It's good for you to know this. And then, okay, so you got like your bridge, right? This is going to be a floor polygon. And then if you're going to be able to walk on the bridge, that's going to be a floor polygon. Remember, Ghost Recon can only have 2 floor polygons. So if you were to, try to make another little walkway above it, like a double-decker bridge or something, while you can run on these floors, your AI is not going to know where it's at, and it's not going to work good. So just try not to make playable areas like that. It's a good idea not to. As far as other issues, generally speaking, when you have like a piece of terrain, in newer game engines, what you can do is create a static piece of geometry or like a building or whatever the case may be. Usually you can get away with stuff like this where you just slap it into the terrain. Well, in GR, this is what happens. Think of this. So there's no roof. Can't even see anything. What's going on here? Okay, let me turn the backface colon back on or off. Okay, so there's no roof to this cube, right? It's on the terrain. But if this was a building, like let's say it was this house that we just created over here, and we just threw it onto this piece of terrain, what ends up happening is the collision walls end up behaving something like this usually. So if you have, like, let's say a lump of rocks, for example, if you were to make a pile of garbage, rubble is what they call it. GR, a rubble pile. Something like that. Right? What's really going on here is inside this, it still has the floor polygon that you can walk on. So when people are making missions for your level, or you're making your mission for your level, if you don't realize this is going on, you'll end up putting actors or enemy combatants or your spawn point in places like this. And it can be quite troublesome, especially if you're putting like multiplayer spawn points in there. That'd be pretty messed up, because then now they can shoot out of that, but you can't shoot into it. So one team's going to be stacked against the other. So it's actually kind of like a level error that the level editor actually creates. So like whoever's building the map is going to end up creating it. Some maps you are required to do something like this. So just for example, like the bridge that I was just talking about, if you were making a bridge, you would have to have the bridge come out over the top of it, and then where that overhang is, that's, or where your player's head could stick up through the level geometry, that is where you would want the collision walls. And a lot of times that collision wall, like the bridge will be coming out, the hills behind it. I should just model it. It's kind of hard to explain, but so like let's say this is the bridge coming out this way, and I'm just gonna make a really messed up piece of mesh here, but so a lot of times, like under a bridge, something like this will be going on. No, extrude. I don't need all that. But a lot of times it'll be like something like that. And so what'll end up happening is you need to create the collision box to a certain point, because maybe you want your characters to walk on a piece of mesh. I'm gonna remake that thing real quick. So like, what did I just do? I'm moving things all around here. And now it's getting chaotic. Let's hide some things. So this might be like your collision box right here, these three faces, so that your character's head doesn't poke up through there. So, this would have to be 2 meters in that area, roughly. And then you'd have to put, your water down here. I'll make more specific tutorials on how to create different things, such as water. But generally speaking, water is pretty simple. It's like something like this. It's supposed to be only a certain depth. I forgot what the actual depth was, so I'll make a video about it later. But basically, every polygon underneath the water is tagged as sand, I believe. The water surface is tagged as water. And then what ends up happening is the water effects are generated when you lob a grenade or whatever in there. I believe that's how that works. So don't quote me. It might be wrong. What else we need to talk about? No, we went over the no more than 2 floors. Oh, here's one. Create a cube. Check this out. Change the dimensions to 400 by 400 by 20. And we're going to go to this tab, this little orange square, visibility, or viewport display. I'm going to check bounds. We're going to, excuse me, not check bounds. We're going to do, change it from textured to bounds. There we go. Okay, and we can actually, under visibility, uncheck selected or selectable. This is your play area. Okay, you cannot create anything outside of this square. It's got to be 400 by 400 meters, or your command map doesn't work. On a side note, if you do ever want to zoom out and your stuff starts disappearing, if you look under your end panel, under view, you'll see that you can actually change your camera focal length, but you also have clip start and clip end. Just bump that up to 2000. It'll keep it from doing that for a little bit longer. You can always bump it up higher if you need to. So that's how that works. So when you're doing like a big piece of terrain, you know, keep in mind, if this is our play area, it needs to all fit in here somewhere, somehow. So you can only make GR levels so big. All right. That is the play area of GR levels. You can actually make you kind of make levels do whatever you want as far as size, to be honest. You know, so I think Igor, the mission editor, you can actually see outside of the command map. So, or you can actually place things on outside of the command map area. So that's useful because you can actually, if you really wanted to, you can make like a big cityscape or something off to the side, and you can have the helicopters fly through there or something. And that would be pretty cool, actually, to see in GR anyways. So all in all, yeah. If you ever do add a building, we're going to grab both of them real quick. You do add a building to your terrain. You know, you got to marry things up a lot. The engine likes to have things that work together and work well. So let me give you an example. We're going to view in this area. We're going to select the terrain. So I need to incorporate this building in here. All I'm going to do is just cut around it real quick. Just to get it started. I actually delete the polygons near it. Okay. And what I want to do is turn snap on vertex. We're going to grab the terrain texture, go into edit mode. Because this is just a square, we should be okay to do this. You'll see that the height there isn't green. We'll fix that in a second. Generally speaking, if you make your buildings bottom floor flat, you won't have too many problems. Start making it crazy, you're gonna have more problems. Now you see how like all of this is just kind of getting crazier and crazier. You know, you could do that way, but I don't know if it's that beneficial. Instead, what you can do is just press, you know, collapse these down as needed. And then you could see if I remember how to do this. No, we're just gonna have to do it with the snaps. So, oops, on the outside. See how high that one is? We can't do that. That's got to go down. There'll be times when you have to really do some custom work too. So here's a good example. I'm going to bevel this. And I'm going to actually bring this back over. I'm going to bring this one back over. We still have this crazy kind of cut there, so we're going to actually cut back this way. So it kind of evens that out a little. That's what an N-gon does when it doesn't want to behave properly. So I can actually take this, extrude it out real quick, match it up. I'm not combining these objects together right now. I'm just snapping it. So it will snap to the other model. Combine these two together so they're all placed. Press E on this one real quick and just drag it out of the way. I want it to snap to that area. All right. Oh, you can turn on the back face culling again. So it'll have the doorway in there. Okay, so GR really, really, really likes, like, you don't have to necessarily have everything touching each other. So you don't have to have a vertex for every vertex, but it has to be very, very precise. Whatever you're going to create, it has to be very precise. Generally speaking, you know, there's only with like smaller props can you get away with placing objects on the floor polygon. But on these bigger things like this, you really want to cut them out just right. This is going to be where your collision detection mostly happens, and you want to make sure you get it right. I'm going to merge all those by distance real quick, and it's a pretty wild little thing there too. So let's bring this one down a little. I like that. And we can bring this one up a tiny bit. I don't mind things being a little uneven, but not, I don't want them too much. Turn that snap off real quick. Mostly flat. Usually people flatten the terrain before they build a house. Not always, but usually. So something like that. Get rid of the bridge. That thing. All right, so now if I hide this, instead of having a house over on top of walkable floor, we now have a little cutout for it. So you should see a cutout like so. And you have a shell as well, because what's going to end up happening is this will go in one room in the terrain. So this will be one room, the interior will be another room. The interior is going to be tagged that way so it doesn't rain inside the building. That's going to be tagged as like 01, 02, whatever. And the outside levels, or the outside rooms are going to be tagged with 1, starting with 1. So, you know, 1, 10, 101, don't use 100. That's a do not use room 100. It will cause a crash. Okay, covered a lot. I don't know how much more I could really talk about in this video. Trees go in, trees, bushes, and grass go in 3D Studio Max 5. You can build your static mesh for your trees in Blender, but you don't have to do it in your level. You can do it in a separate blend file and just create that. Let's talk about one more thing here. There's the website textures.com. This is an excellent resource for just getting textures and making your texture maps. You know, so you can make atlases of textures and all kinds of different buildings and concretes and all kinds of fun stuff. You have a limit, you got to sign up, but you only get like 15 downloads a day, I think, which isn't too bad. But when you do that, check this out. You can file import if you have it turned on. I think I turned it on. Maybe it's on by default now. Who knows? You go to edit preferences and then you do import images as planes. Okay, check that on. Save preferences so you can always go back to it. It's pretty useful. You can import an image as a plane. So I have a couple textures I've downloaded. Just want to show you the quick down and dirty about this. When you get rid of all this extra, we don't need it. When you import the images as planes and you go to this little tab, turn it to texture, you'll see that it's a texture now. Here's something fun I've actually learned more recently. Blender does in fact preserve textures when you move geometry around. So I was telling people like you can't do this or you'll mess up your okay. Maybe they just added. I guess they just added it. I don't know. 3ds Max had it for a long time. 3ds Max 5 I don't think does, but like 6, 7, and 8 did or something. But Blender I think just added it. So correct face attributes. So if I move this now, it doesn't move the texture. It just moves the mesh. Pretty useful. You'll use that a lot. Trust me. But you're gonna have to go up here to options every time in edit mode, by the way, and uncheck and check it. It's kind of annoying. But just for example, like this texture cuts off right here. I don't want that, so I'm gonna click correct. I'm gonna move over just a little bit, and see there's like grass back here and stuff. I don't want that either. I'm not even modifying this texture right now. I just want to show you something. This is kind of a way to create wall faces that's been around for a while, but it's pretty useful. Basically, you just add your edge loops, kind of like we did earlier, and then you just cut them in where you need them. Okay. I'm going to add another one just for the bottom of these. Okay. And I'm not going to do an edge loop, or I'm not going to do the signs or this or that or that. You don't really need all that. But I'm going to select these vertical ones, kind of how we did earlier, bevel them. And I'm doing this by line of sight. So first of all, none of this is measured right now. This is just pure modeling, but it is by line of sight. There's no scale to it yet. You'd have to scale it later. So you would do something like that, and you would press I. You would do an inset like so. Ooh, you see what happened there? This one needs to go down. So I want the inset to go in towards the window a little bit. I want these to line up right perfectly at the top as well. The bottoms, this one needs to be moved. Actually needs to be moved a little on the side here. Cool. All right. Now check this out. You can even move that one over a little like that. This is just a fun way to create geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off correct face attributes, and I am going to change it to individual origins. So now when I scale, it will scale each individual face instead of doing it as a group together. It's going to do each one by itself. I'm going to measure the top to bottom first, and then I'm going to do, not measure it, but I'm going to just guesstimate. Try to rescale it back up. Now I can press G, X, and Y, push it in a little bit. And what that allows to happen is it gives me just enough texture information that it doesn't look completely horrible. Maybe a little too deep there, but you know, see right there. Okay, so basically what's going on now is that create a little bit of geometry, a little bit of a cut there, and you do the same thing here. Okay, so these will be ledges. I'm gonna press I, make it pretty small. I'm going to scale it on Z. Press G, X, and just pull it out a little bit. All right, so this is kind of an old school how to make your models from pictures technique. Um, Very useful at times. So if you select a texture that's worthy, you clean it up so that you don't have this kind of weird nonsense like the signs and stuff on it. Um, you can make this almost like a modular kit. It's not quite, but you can reuse these and then make long run-on walls if you need to, so like apartment buildings and things like that. And then you can even create atlases together, so you can more or less make a modular kit with it. It's really quite useful. So you'll see, you can, if you had the right kind of setup, it would be really quick and easy and fun to do. And then you can rotate these around corners as well. You can also make intermediate pieces, so you could make a complete modular kit more or less, or you can just use it as a starting point to make more stuff. Um, this video's ran on forever. It's like me rambling for the most part. I'm going to be doing more detailed, specific things like that in the future. You can see here, that's what I was just showing you. Quite honestly, that's what this is. You can see I did the same thing. I created a little corner section. Here's a little part that extrudes. And right here, this is just a parapet. I don't think that's a parapet. It's just a trim, a piece of trim. But I did the same thing with little air conditioners all the way up there. And you'll notice, for GR, you don't really need all that, but it will work in GR. So if I press, I'm going to go down here, I'm going to press the Shift tilde key, and then I'm going to press G. And what it does is it gives me gravity when I press G. So as long as I'm on a floor polygon or a polygon that faces in the Z-axis, it'll act like I'm walking around. I can use WASD to walk around. And so this is how you can get a feel for your levels without actually putting it into game yet. It's pretty much scaled correctly. 50 millimeters, I believe, is correct when it comes to the view distance as well. So this should look real familiar. The run is super fast though, so you can mouse wheel in. You can see I didn't do the wall back here. Whoops. You can mouse wheel in and out to walk faster or slower, but you get the idea. So now, this is how you start creating stuff. The most important stuff isn't really what's up here; it's what's right here. This is what's most important. All of this. So you need to make sure, like, glass is glass. It hits. This is wood. If you got bars, you want to add bars. Seriously, put the bars on a separate texture file and make them like an alpha channel texture where it's like it has a clear. It's clear, and it's just the bars, and then you can put the wood behind it and the glass behind it. It'd be a little bit easier. And but overall, you'll end up making everything look really good, and if you take your time doing it, it'll look amazing. I spent a little bit of time on this, but I can certainly do better. So if I can do better, you can probably do better too. It just takes a little bit of time. And this is more or less, this is one texture all the way up and down. That's just one texture, and this is another texture. The parapet is, or I keep calling it a parapet, the trim here, literally created from a separate texture file. So this is just I think a metal texture I used for that one. Preferably, do it the right way, like the top ones. It's gonna help. And if you're wondering like how this works, I kid you not, like this technique here, I believe, has been used in more games than you can imagine. I know buildings created in this manner, like this. This is how Crytek did Crisis 2, the New York City stuff. If you go look at the files, it's all really just basic kind of cutouts like this. I mean, they're only like a couple. They're not many polygons to them, so keep that in mind. and they're almost always cut in the back too, especially if they're distant ones. They're cut weird and they do weird things like this. I don't think they would even have a top and bottom polygon on them though, for some of them. They only use the tops. They only put tops on them if they're distant objects, when they need shadows from them. That's the only time they really did that. But a lot of times they'll just delete the faces, so it's completely clear. It's just like a piece of trim from the distance. You would never tell. Like it's just crazy. Yeah, so that's that. Keep that kind of thing in mind, that you can create some cool stuff. And so if you're not playing behind these, you don't need to create the backs of them. You know, then there's no reason to have polygons back there if you don't need them. Clean it up, make it super neat, organized. But this will work, and it will work in GR. All right, so thanks for watching this video. I know it ran on pretty long, but hopefully you learned a lot. I'm gonna make more in the future. Just it's gonna take some time. I'm only a one-man operation here, so I'll see you in the next one. All right.